Hi, everyone. I hope that you are having a lovely afternoon now that it is the afternoon. Want to welcome you and thank you again for joining us for this 1 hour code breaker. As you get settled, a few reminders. Please use the Q&A section for any questions today, and remember to be constructive in any of those questions or comments to the presenter and to one another to ensure that we have a session that is productive. AIA California will submit one AIA HSW learning unit for those who complete the session live. As always, the webinar content and additional resources will be available online shortly after the session. Today's webinar, which will focus on outdoor lighting, is brought to you by Energy Code ACE. Again, it qualifies for one HSW learning unit for those who watch live and complete the session in full. Now to introduce our presenter. Gina Griffiths-Rada is currently the principal and owner of Gable Energy in Castro Valley and has been in the energy modeling field since 1991. Gina is the instructor of several dozen full-day Energy Code ACE trainings on the residential and non-residential Title 24 Part 6 Building Energy Efficiency Standards for building department staff, energy consultants, engineers, and architects. She is a certified energy analyst, a LEED accredited professional, and a Title 24 energy analyst, performing a wide range of responsibilities in both residential and non-residential construction pertaining to compliance standards and energy modeling, and is a respected subject matter expert informing the statewide code development process. Wow, you're amazing, Gina.
I'm like, you read all of that. No one reads all of that.
Please take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to get myself set up by sharing my screen. And there was a few extra buttons it wanted me to press. Do you see my screen?
It looks great.
Okay, excellent. Then we're going to get diving into this. This is a pretty, let me go back one. I didn't mean to press that. So we are going to concentrate on outdoor lighting, and that includes both single family, non-residential, and multifamily outdoor lighting requirements. I'm sure many of you guys who have seen sessions that I've done in the past, I have a tendency to pack a lot of stuff into a short time period. And yes, that's exactly what we're going to do today. So do please make sure to put any questions you have as you have them into the question and answer section. I'm not going to be paying attention to the chat just because there's a lot of content and I'll be moving pretty quickly. And we do want to make sure you know that any questions you put in here that we didn't have time to answer during the session today, we'll do after, because there is a lot that we're trying to deal with in this particular code breaker that we're doing with you, in which we're going to talk about my 3 building types, again, single family, multifamily, non-residential, and hotel motel. Understand what's required in terms of wattage and control requirements and how potentially the rules might change when we have an alteration project. So Energy Code ACE, hopefully all of you are aware of us, that you've used us. We are at no cost. So please use us. We have so much here that we've developed to help the industry understand the energy code. I mean, I don't want to say the energy code's more complex than the rest of the building code, but what makes the energy code challenging is that it covers all building features, envelopes, structural, electrical, renewables, mechanical, all in one place, and that can be challenging. It also supports many different building types and different scopes of work. My favorite tool, honestly, you guys, if you've seen me before, you know I always talk about Reference ACE. That is the code language itself that you can search, hyperlink, and do all sorts of fun things with. We have updated to a new beta version that is a lot more user-friendly, so I'm hoping you guys will check that out. And I'm hoping that you are aware of our Q&A tool that is a library of questions that have been asked and answered by the Energy Commission, either via the manuals that are supported by the Energy Commission or the blueprint, their quarterly newsletter, which is amazing, of which they always make sure to answer some of the most common questions they get through their hotline. We also have training. We do have some full day classes. I know I've seen some of you at those classes. Again, it's another way to get up to speed on what's happening with the energy code. We are starting to get people asking about, hey, when are you going to do the training for the 2025 code? Whew. And we are going to be coming out with those trainings towards the end of the year to support the new code cycle coming our way, January 1st of 2025. 2026. We also have a library of resources. We're about to finish up our last 2022 resource for the 2022 code cycle that will be coming out live, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So use us. We are a codes and standard program that is supported through a program via the CPUC and is at no additional cost to you. So code basics. So I always talk to you guys about how, hey, this next code, the code cycle we're talking about is the 2022 code cycle. And it's written and adopted in 2022, but then it doesn't become enforceable till January 1st of the year after. So that's why the 2022 code cycle is going to apply for projects that submit for permit as of January 1st of 2023. That was last year. We're on a 3-year code cycle, just like the rest of the building code, and the 2025 energy code, which will be adopted next year. We're in the last gasp efforts of them actually putting out final language. We'll get that any day now. And the 2025 code will apply for projects that submit for permit January 1st of 2026. So I like to start talking about our upcoming code cycle now, because I don't know about you, but a lot of my projects, we take years to develop those projects. And I might be starting the design of those projects now, but I'm not going to submit until 2026. I need to know that during design so that everything can go smoothly. Now, one of the big changes that happened for the 2022 code cycle is they reorganized things, in which multifamily buildings got their own set of chapters. They used to be integrated in all these pieces all throughout the code. Now they have their own chapters, which means the single family chapters only speak to single family now. Makes it easier to understand. The non-residential hotel motel chapters don't include any information about multifamily anymore, making it easier to understand. So this reorganization, in my opinion, helped just understand how things apply to my different building types. Now, remember, we have mandatory requirements. And when we're talking about outdoor lighting, all of the controls I'm going to talk about are mandatory requirements. And mandatory requirements apply equally across all climate zones, not climate zone derivative. It also applies across all outdoor lighting zones. That's what we're going to talk about when we talk about outdoor lighting, is a lighting zone that dictates how much wattage you're allowed based on your location. Mandatory measures also look the same, whether you are new construction, the least expensive time to integrate energy efficiency, all the way to alterations, the most expensive time to integrate energy efficiency, which is supported with our prescriptive measures. You'll find often that the prescriptive measures are not as stringent for an alteration project as it is for a new construction project, because of the cost effectiveness evaluation that is required for all energy code features that are adopted, with the exception of indoor air quality. Indoor air quality does not have to meet the cost effectiveness evaluation of the energy code. We do have the ability to use the performance approach to trade prescriptive measures, but only if that building feature is part of the conditioned part of the building. Outdoor lighting is not part of the conditioned part of the building, so you will never, ever be able to show compliance for your outdoor lighting via the performance approach. You must use the prescriptive approach. So I have a question for you guys. If you wouldn't mind answering this, I will open the chat for this. Where are the requirements for multi-family buildings? What code sections are you going to go to? I started you guys off with an easy one. So what do you guys think? Is it A, B, or C? Where are we going to go to find the multi-family requirements? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark, Jerry, Zachary. Excellent. That is going to be C, those 3 brand new chapters that we got for the 2022 code cycle, supporting all of our multifamily buildings. There we go. Let's start with single family. Okay. Hey, Judith. So we're going to start first with single family. And the reason I start here is because the single family lighting requirements, in some cases support what we're doing for multifamily and hotel motel. So that's where I like to start. So for our single family outdoor lighting, because remember, we're talking about outdoor lighting, all of the requirements for single family are mandatory. So we are going to see both the control and the luminaire requirements in mandatory, and there are no prescriptive measures, and you cannot use the performance approach because outdoor lighting is outside the conditioned space. When we talk about scope of work, we need to be aware of the definitions of repair versus alteration, and then what's in addition. A repair, such as fixing a broken light, not replacing it, but fixing it, keeping it the same energy use it always was able to do before. I unscrewed a 100-watt incandescent bulb. I screwed in a 10-watt LED bulb. That is a repair because I did not permanently change the energy performance of the entire luminaire. I only changed the light source. Alteration is when I'm replacing that outdoor fixture. Or it could be I'm adding outdoor fixtures in which now I'm increasing the connected load of that outdoor lighting system, which then has some more stringent energy code requirements because I'm adding to the connected load. So when we talk about outdoor lighting, we don't talk about wattage for single family. We talk about, is it high efficacy? And I like this table. This has both indoor and outdoor lighting for single family. High efficacy for outdoor lighting is going to be HID, such as high pressure sodium or metal halide, which we don't really see anymore. I don't know if you guys see it, but I don't see it anymore. I see LED. And when we're talking about single family, and I keep saying that building type, any LED luminaire installed outside the home is automatically high efficacy. That is not the case for indoor lighting, but it is the case for outdoor lighting. Does not need to be JA8 certified unless it is a night light, step light, or path light. This is where I don't care if it's indoors or outdoors. If that luminaire is 5 watts or greater, not only will it dictate a dimmer if inhabitable space, in which outdoor lighting is not inhabitable space, so that's not going to be required, but it will have to be JA8 certified, even though that luminaire is outdoors. We talk about lighting that's attached to a building. So if there's any lighting that's not attached to the building, such as landscape lighting, such as pool lighting, anything that's not attached to a building, whether that be the single family home, a detached garage or storage building, that's the lighting we're talking about. I have to have layers of controls for single family. I have to have the ability to turn it on and off. There is no exception to the manual on off. I like to say the energy code is protecting you on Halloween. When you run out of candy, you need to shut that light off, and you don't want it to automatically come on because it's dark or someone is at your door. So we always need the on off switch. Then you're going to choose any of the following configurations. You don't have to do all of them. You're going to do one line item. One is a photocell integrated into the light or wired to the light in addition to a motion sensor. It only turns on when it's dark and when someone is there. Or a photocell and a time switch. It's only turning on when it's dark and only when I'm programming it to be on for certain times of the night. Or I can use an astronomical time clock. This already knows when it's sunset and sunrise, and then you will program it for when the lights will turn on and off throughout the night. Or if you desire to use an energy management control system, which is getting more and more popular with single family homes, it must be able to be programmed to meet the requirements supported by any of the above control options. Again, any lighting not attached to the building or any building on the property is not subject to the energy code for single family. When we talk about documenting compliance, nothing regarding lighting shows up in the certificate of compliance form, the CF1R for single family. It really needs to be in your designs. Don't just leave this as I'm going to have my contractor do it and they have to be aware of current code. I always support you understanding what the requirements are and designing a lighting system that meets these requirements, so that the contractor can easily submit their CF2R form, their installation form, that supporting what they installed meets the energy code. Now, I love the CF2R form. You might not ever think that you would want to take a look at it, but that CF2R form has a great checklist of what's needed of that outdoor lighting system to meet the energy code. Now, you might want to consider using a mandatory note block to support your single family outdoor lighting. We do have some note block tools at Energy Code ACE, of which you can download these. It has all the mandatory requirements for single family, envelope, mechanical, etc. And it allows you to pick and choose what's appropriate to your scope of work to customize the note block for you to insert into your drawing set so that you are fully supporting the mandatory requirements of the Energy Code as is required by Title 24, Part 1, the Administrative Code. Here's that CF2R that I absolutely love. Again, it's only a couple of pages long, and it has a great overview that's broken down by outdoor lighting feature that really helps understanding how the Energy Code needs to apply to the project. We, of course, have a fact sheet for this. We have a residential indoor and outdoor lighting fact sheet that supports single family and what needs to be understood for multifamily and hotel motel guest rooms also. I have a check your understanding for you guys, if you wouldn't mind, in the chat answering. Does a screw-based outdoor fixture need to use a JA8 certified lamp for a single family home? So I have a screw-based outdoor fixture attached to a building. Does it need to be JA8 certified? Excellent, guys. No, it doesn't, because any LED outdoor lighting, unless it's pathway egress, navigation lighting, that's what they call it. Navigation lighting, depending upon how many watts it is, might need to be JA8, but otherwise this screw-based outdoor fixture attached to the building does not need to be JA8 certified. I do recommend to people to consider it anyway, because that entire qualification process is to support a good LED luminaire that has a proven amount of lifetime that's warranted by the manufacturer, meets certain color rendering requirements and high efficacy requirements in terms of what is the efficiency of that LED lamp. I think it's a great idea to do anyway, but it's a choice. Let's move on to non-residential and hotel motel. So now we're moving to a completely different set of buildings, and it's a completely different set of forms too. So now let's get in our head. We're talking non-residential, which does also include hotel motel. And here the mandatory requirements are the controls, just like we saw with single family. But now we're going to have prescriptive wattage allowances that for single family were mandatory because it was just use this type of light and let's call it done. For non-residential and hotel motel and multifamily, we have to meet the wattage allowances associated with our different lighting features outside and the lighting zone associated with our project. Now, there are these layers of forms, just like we had for single family, we have the certificate of compliance, but now instead of it being called a CF1R, it's called an NRCC, a non-residential certificate of compliance. And we have one that is unique just for outdoor lighting. We have one that's unique for indoor lighting. We have one that's unique for mechanical systems. This is the prescriptive method. We have our installation forms that are required by the contractors, that what was promised in that NRCC LTO is actually installed, equal or better. We also have acceptance testing for controls for our outdoor systems. So there are acceptance testing. It can be the installing contractor, but they need to be certified by the Energy Commission as being an acceptance test technician. That then is, they are supported by their acceptance test provider. Very similar to the HERS measures, but HERS is third party. The contractor cannot be the HERS rater, but for acceptance testing, the contractor can be the acceptance test technician. They just need to be certified. We're doing all of this documentation, providing all of this to the building owner, because these are all liability documents, so that our certificate of occupancy goes smoothly. Now, the Virtual Compliance Assistant, which is a tool at Energy Code ACE, supports all the non-residential hotel, motel, and multifamily prescriptive forms. The VCA does not support single family at this time. I'm hoping maybe someday we'll be allowed to do the single family forms, but the CEC has to approve that before it can be incorporated. Now, you might not be the person that's doing the forms. Do any of you fill out the compliance forms yourselves? Anyone here in the room? Yeah, Gina, I do my own forms. I don't hire someone to do it. I'm not seeing anyone saying yes, they do it. I get it. You might, Francis, I got a few of you. Thank you. So why I suggest you guys use this tool is so that as you're designing, you're understanding what's required of your design so it can go smoothly with the person who is documenting your design. So if you are doing anything regarding outdoor design or having, we just had a couple of projects here in our office that we had the architect and we then had the electrical team both putting outdoor lighting features, depending upon where it was, the courtyards versus the walkways and parking lots. And they were not coordinating. And the amount of outdoor lighting they wanted was so ridiculous, it wasn't even funny. And if potentially the design team was using tools like this, we wouldn't have had to make them completely redesign their outdoor lighting system twice, because they were so outside of the wattage allowances of the energy code. So when we are looking at our LTO forms, they're nice tools. I hope you look at these when people are doing these for you. One, we're looking and identifying the scope of the project. Again, new construction, I am installing luminaires for the first time, or I'm increasing the connected load of that outdoor area of the building. When I increase the connected load, I potentially have to show compliance for the entire outdoor lighting system existing plus what you're adding. So adding to the connected load can be very, very challenging. What I usually suggest my clients do is alter the existing lighting systems to reduce the amount of wattage associated with those fixtures, in addition to adding additional features. And as long as we make sure to never be above what the existing wattage was to begin with, we're considered an alteration and we get alteration leniency. Now, there are weird triggers for non-residential hotel, motel, and multifamily outdoor lighting alteration projects. If you are altering less than 10% of the number of fixtures, you're like, well, Gina, I've got that down. That's what it is for indoor lighting. This ain't unusual. Great, we've got the 10% threshold. If 10% or more of the number of fixtures are being altered on that site, then that is an alteration trigger and we have to show compliance to the alteration rules of the code. But they also identified how many fixtures. So if it's less than 10%, great, you don't trigger the code. Or if it's 100% of the fixtures, but it's only 4, you don't trigger the code. So the threshold is 10% or more and 5 or more fixtures being altered. That's the trigger to the energy code for an alteration. Or of course, if you are going to alter luminaires that have a higher wattage than what was there before, then you're back to new construction because you are increasing the connected load. What is also unique about non-residential hotel, motel, and multifamily lighting is that if you're rewiring the head of the fixture, but the luminaire remains, so it's only the luminaire head that's being rewired, that is not a trigger like it is for indoor lighting. That is considered a repair and does not trigger the energy code. You do need to know your lighting zone. So this is based on the US Census, and the US Census can be very difficult to use. I don't know if any of you have used the US Census site, but you really have to know what you're looking for. We do have some great guidance in our non-residential lighting fact sheet on how to use the US Census to determine your lighting zone. But current code, it will be based on the 2010 US Census. Spoiler alert! For the 2025 code cycle, it will be based on the 2020 US Census. So things are shifting. And we're looking at, hey, are you an undeveloped area in which, come on, do you really need light? We're going to give you one light fixture within a certain length from the entry, and that's the only light you get. Are you lighting zone 1? It's rural. We really want to maintain a dark sky. We are not going to let you go crazy. Or you are an urban cluster. This is brand new to this code cycle. An urban cluster is not the same as an urban area, and it's maybe a subdivision. So consider, okay, subdivision might be what we call an urban cluster. You get a little bit more lighting than rural, but you're not the same as downtown. Downtown urban areas get the highest amount of wattage allowance. There is a lighting zone 4, but you have to be approved by the CEC to use lighting zone 4, and no area in any of California has been approved for lighting zone 4 ever. So here's a quick look on how we like to look at the US Census. I'm going to go pretty quickly through that because you guys probably won't use that. But then how are we determining our illuminated area for non-residential hotel, motel, and multifamily buildings? We look at where the fixtures are. It's not based on what's the size of the lot. It's based on, are you putting a fixture there? And if you're putting a luminaire fixture there, we take 10 times the height of that fixture, where that mounting height is, and we go out 5 times that height, 5 times that height, 5 times to the left, 5 times to the right, so that we have 10 times the luminaire mounting height incorporated with the fixture in the middle. We do not include planter and landscape areas that are deeper than 10 feet and are not bordered by on at least 3 sides by illuminated hardscape areas. So there's all these rules of determining what are the bits and pieces of the outdoor lot that is being illuminated that is allowed to be used as a square footage to set your wattage allowances. Now, so here we have a project in which we have this parking lot. And sports courts have the same exact requirements, Bruce. So let's say, hey, this isn't a parking lot, it's a tennis court, okay? And I don't care what it is. It's a place that I'm illuminating because people are either walking, using, or driving on that location. That's why we call it hardscape. It doesn't mean that it's concrete or that it's asphalt. It could be grass, it could be pebbles, it could be whatever, but we are walking and or driving on that surface, hence it is hardscape. So you are going to take the mounting height. So here we have 2 fixtures in the middle of the tennis court. That's going to make playing tennis hard, but then, let's visualize this here. And they're 25 feet high. So I'm going to go out 5 times that 25 feet out to the front, back, left, and right. And then I'm going to do that again to every single fixture associated with the project. Now you'll see that I have way exceeded my actual footprint area that I'm trying to show compliance for. And I actually have some landscape areas. So you'll see here that most of these landscape areas don't have hardscape on 3 sides of them. So I'm going to have to remove those landscape areas because of the fact I don't meet the criteria. They're greater than 10 feet and I don't have hardscape on 3 sides. But here, this little teeny landscape area does meet all that criteria. So I do get to include that wattage allowance. Now I'm going to take that wattage, the square footage I worked so hard to determine, and multiply it times a number based on my lighting zone. So I do a lot of work in lighting zone 3, that's urban areas. So I would multiply that square footage by 0.021. But I'm not done yet. We're actually going to keep going here. I'm going to do the perimeter. So the perimeter of that illuminated area that I worked so hard to do, making sure to remove the landscape areas, I take that linear foot number and multiply it by an allowance based on my lighting zone. And I also get that wattage. And then I also get an initial wattage allowance if I'm doing lighting for the first time for that site, or I'm showing compliance to every single light fixture on that lot. That's the only time I get to use this additional wattage allowance. Now, I got to tell you, for the 2022 code cycle, they reduced these quite a bit, aligning them with LED technology. And we have definitely found that it's been challenging to get a lot of people's outdoor lighting designs to meet these requirements because they're not aware of the reduced wattage allowances of this energy code. Now we can do additional lighting power allowances, layers of light. And I use these whenever I can because remember our wattage allowances are so low, but these are use it or lose it. So if I have a dedicated light that's for the building entry, I can add 19 watts, woohoo, for that light fixture. I get this 19 watts per entry. It's not per fixture, it's per entry. So if I have 5 entries to the building, a dedicated light for each of those 5 entries, I get to use the additional 19 watts. Now it is use it or lose it. So I actually have to identify what is that fixture that's the entry light, what is its wattage, and then I get to take 19 watts to reduce that wattage. And anything left over that is not covered by this allowance is then must be supported with this general hardscape allowance. So general hardscape I can use for any light fixture on the property. These additional wattage allowances are use it or lose it, and it has to be specifically because that light fixture is serving this purpose. So Tuan is asking, is school, college, and civic buildings under the non-residential? Yes, they are. So pretty much all of the building occupancies are subject to the energy code with the exception of occupancy L, laboratory, and occupancy I3 and I4, those are prisons and daycare facilities, and occupancy C, camps. Those are the 3 occupancies that are not subject to the energy code. Spoiler alert, for the 2025 code cycle, occupancy L will be subject to the energy code for the very first time. So for those of you who work with occupancy laboratory buildings, be aware there are changes coming your way. Now, I have a lot of people going, Gina, I can't show compliance. I just had a couple questions on this in the last month where they're like, I'm doing an industrial site. I have used every additional wattage allowance. I've done everything I can, and I cannot get my lighting design to show compliance and meet the health and safety requirements for, let's say, and I'm pulling this out of the hat, 10-foot candles per square foot. Always remember to look at the exempt list. So I was able to support those 2 projects. There were 2 different projects here. Look at number 5, lighting for industrial sites, and they give you some examples, are exempt to the wattage allowance requirements of the energy code. I had someone just ask about, let's say an outdoor field, whether it be tennis or basketball or whatever, I'm blanking on the word. So here you'll see that lighting for sports and athletic fields and children's playgrounds are exempt. So I don't have to meet the wattage requirements for these particular light features, but you are not exempt to the control requirements. So you're exempt to the wattage requirements. You are not exempt to the control requirements. Now, one of the biggest requirements that we have for outdoor lighting that I find I have to have a lot of conversations about is the shielding, or what I like to call the bug requirements: backlight, uplight, and glare. The trigger to shielding and bug lives in Title 24, Part 6, of which if you have an outdoor luminaire that is 6,200 lumens or greater, now I need to know your lumens and your watts. There's so much information I need to know, that I need to meet the bug requirements of CalGreen, Title 24, Part 11. And the compliance documents to the Energy Code require you to document how you are compliant to CalGreen. Now, CalGreen has some different exceptions to bug than Title 24, Part 6 does. So we have exceptions in Title 24, Part 6 to the shielding requirements. And then we have slightly different exceptions in CalGreen. It's very frustrating. Spoiler alert, for the 2025 code cycle, they are cleaning that up, and we're going to see that any exception in CalGreen is an appropriate exception in Title 24, Part 6 for the next code cycle. We also need controls to make sure the lights are only on when it's dark out. Now we have choices. We already saw this with single family. It could be a photo control that's integrated into the light fixture or wired to the light fixture. It doesn't have to be integrated, but it does need to be controlling it. So that's why we need it to be wired to it. You could choose an astronomical time switch control. Remember, that's the one that knows when it's sunset and sunrise and also allows you to do some programming of when the light will be on and at what level of light will that light be on. Or any other control, such as an energy management control system that meets the criteria that it can automatically, you're not trusting anyone to do it on their own, it's an automatic shut off when daylight is available. There are exceptions, of course, health and life safety statutes, ordinance, or regulations. I get so many people going, Gina, health and safety says I can't do this. I'm like, where does it say that? Well, it's just common sense. It has to be written somewhere. It can't be, you don't think this is fair. It has to be written, and then you need to state with the statute, ordinance, and regulation that you're doing that allows for this. Lighting in tunnels. Yeah, it's daylight, but not in that tunnel. Sun don't shine there. We need those lights to be on, even if the sun is up. So to me, that's a common sense exception. Francisco is asking if you use the performance approach. Ooh, let's just stop. What did I say at the very beginning? Can I use the performance approach for outdoor lighting? No. So I don't care how amazing your performance approach is for the conditioned envelope of your building. You do not get to do any trade-offs with outdoor lighting because it is not within the conditioned envelope. So performance, oh, indoor lighting. You jump topics on me, man. Indoor lighting in the conditioned space. If it's indoor lighting in unconditioned space, no, because it's not part of the conditioned space. Indoor lighting in the conditioned space, yes. You can trade it if desired with envelope, mechanical, and other building features. It's a choice. It's not a requirement. Single family, you have to do everything. You don't get to pick and choose. For non-residential, hotel, motel, and multifamily, you choose whether you want to use the performance approach for each building feature or a combination of those building features. Automatic scheduling controls. This is what causes a lot of difficulty after the bug requirements. There has to be an automatic scheduling device that allows the building owner to program the lighting power of the entire site to be reduced down to 50% and no more than 90%. So you need to have the ability to have not just 100% on. So how are we able to program the different lights, part of my outdoor lighting scenes, in a way that I can reduce the lighting power by 50%, but not by 100%, no more than 90%. It has to be able to turn the light off when the area is not occupied. This is a choice of being able to use motion sensors as a mechanism to meet the automatic scheduling controls. But you also need to be able to leave the building owner the ability to program at least 2 separate schedules independently of each other. So this is where just occupancy sensors are not going to be a way of doing this, because that's on or off or reduced or off, and it's not 2 separate schedules. So it usually has to be combined with some sort of energy management control system. It could be that astronomical time clock or time switch almost always allows this type of programming, depending upon how it's wired to all of the outdoor fixtures and or if Wi-Fi controls are being used in terms of that wireless support. They really have to think this through. Yeah, you can combine it with motion sensors, but you can't do the 2 separate nighttime schedules with only motion sensors. And motion sensors are not desired by a lot of clients in certain areas because of health and safety concerns. Well, we do have exceptions here also, the same ones we had for the daylight availability. So now motion sensing. So I get a lot of clients who are like, Gina, we do not want our light reduced down to 50%. We have a lot of people using our parking lots legally or illegally, and we don't want the lighting to be reduced. And then they're challenged with meeting their 10-foot candles per square foot at that reduced lighting. That might be a local ordinance that needs to be supported. So one thing I always like my clients to know is what the energy code wants is for this controllability to be available so that the building owners can choose to use it Whether the tenant of this building now doesn't want to use it, fine, the next tenant might. So a lot of the energy code requirements are what are we incorporating into the building and its ability to be used, even if you choose not to use it. So if we have motion sensors associated with our projects, we can program them to not reduce the lighting, but it must be capable of reducing the lighting by at least 50%. Previous code cycle, it was 40%, and turning it off, but having that ability to have at least 10% of the lighting on if desired. So there's all these rules that need to be followed so that we can give that flexibility to the building owners and have the discussion about how it's going to be supported with the motion sensor and the fixture technology. We have different, you can have dimmable technology. Dimmable technology is what supports the energy code the most. But the energy code is not saying everything has to be dimmable. So if you don't have dimmable technology, then you have to look at, well, how am I going to, is it going to be then a 2-lamp fixture in which one of the lamps is turned off and the other one is on? Or is it going to be every other fixture of which then I still need to meet my foot candles? And how am I going to do that in a way that supports all of the needs of the site and the building owner? This is not easy. I got to tell you, it's not. And this causes a lot of complexity and confusion in the industry. These motion sensing controls have to be able to be programmed to turn down or reduce. Remember, we can reduce the lighting level by 50%, or it could be that it's the fixture next to it that's turning all the way off, or it could be it's 3 in the morning and we want all the lights off. We don't need any of them on. But if someone's walking on the property, that's when the motion sensor is going to be turning on the lights. We have a 15-minute timeout max. It could be programmed less than that, but that's the maximum. And for every 1,500 watts of lighting, I need to have a separate sensor. I find most people these days are doing a sensor per fixture. And that's what a lot of the technology is available to us by the manufacturers is integrated sensors with all of our fixtures. But that's part of what you need to figure out. And does it then meet the look and feel that your building owner desires that you as the architect are supporting? Now, the exceptions to motion sensors, if the luminaire is 40 watts or less, you do not need to do the motion sensor. It's a choice. If there is a written health or life safety statute, ordinance, or regulation, not just a desire, you have an exception. But remember, even if there's a desire to not have it, we might have to have it, buy for it, make sure it's supported, but program it in a way that makes the building owner happy. You're in a tunnel. If your wattage was exempt to the prescriptive wattage requirements. Now let's talk about those sports field lighting again. So the sports field lighting, playground lighting, industrial use lighting, anything that was on that list of what was exempt to wattage, you'll notice was not exempt to daylit controls, was not exempt to the scheduling controls, but will be exempt to the motion sensing controls because that is a written exception. If the light is being used for building facade, ornamental hardscape, outdoor dining, or outdoor sales frontage, that lighting does not have to be controlled with motion sensors, with the exception if the light you're using is a bilateral symmetrical. So that is, I have uplight and I have downlight, or I have left to right. I'm finding that more and more designers are going that route because it can point down, because it's within that hardscape illumination. The motion sensors will be required unless you can meet one of the other exceptions. What controls do you think are going to be required for these pole lights out in, let's call it, it's our tennis court? Will I have to meet the shielding requirements for my tennis court lighting? They're 150 watts each and they're 4,000 lumens each. Will I need to meet the shielding requirements? That's triggered in the energy code, but the requirements themselves live in Cal Green. Anyone want to put an answer into the chat? This one's hard. No, we don't have to do the shielding requirements. Remember, we had exceptions for the sports lighting when it came to this. And also the trigger is 6,200 lumens. This is 4,000 lumens. So no, we don't have to do shielding. Will we have to do daylighting? Will we have to do automatic scheduling? Will we have to do motion sensor? What else do you think needs to be here? So I have some people saying, so Francisco is saying C, automatic scheduling definitely is going to be needed. B, thank you, Ryan. B is going to be needed. Motion sensor will not, because of the fact that we were exempt to the wattage requirements, because this is sports lighting. That also gives us an exception to motion sensor. You guys did fantastic. Yay. What does bug mean? Backlight, uplight, and glare. So we have acceptance testing. Right? Again, remember, this has to be by a certified acceptance test technician. Can be the contractor, but they have to be certified. These are the two providers that support our acceptance test technicians. The reason I want to talk about this with you, the architects, is I find that this is forgotten or not understood by many of our contractors. Please make sure that when you are helping develop contracts with the contractors doing the work for all of your projects, that you're making sure they're aware of the installation, acceptance, and verification requirements of the energy code, so that they can't say, I've been doing this for 25 years and no one's ever made me do this before. You're going to make sure they know about it ahead of time, because that we're having lots of issues. We have then contractors who don't know what acceptance testing is. They are not an acceptance tester, and finding a third-party acceptance tester is very difficult. We almost always need to make sure our contractor is a certified ATT for this to happen smoothly. Encourage them. What's different about alterations? Well, we already saw that we're not triggering anything when we're less than 10%, or we're only altering 4 or less fixtures of that entire site. And you'll see that I can alter up to 49% of the number of fixtures on the site and not have to show compliance to those wattage allowances. Woo, that's pretty nice. You only have to meet the wattage requirements if you are altering 50% or more, and that 50% is 5 or more fixtures. We also have a nice alternative pathway that, as long as you can prove you reduced the installed wattage of that entire outdoor lighting system by 40%, you have passed the prescriptive wattage requirements. You don't have to do illuminated area and all that funny stuff. You just have to go, this is what the wattage was before, and this is what it is permanently after. Magdalena is asking, what about multi-tenants in one building? Is the whole building considered per site? Yes, it is. You're going to have some lighting attached to the building that might be controlled just within that particular tenant, but we look at the entire outdoor lighting system as on the property as a whole. If it's part of that property, it is that entire outdoor lighting system. We don't break it out by tenant. So sometimes I'll have where it's a restaurant tenant and they want to add outdoor dining, and I have to then have new added lights for outdoor dining. And how am I going to configure my compliance with the fact that I added to the connected load, but it was for a particular tenant? Stuart's asking, to what degree do you see the new lighting provisions impacting total building energy use? New lighting provisions impacting total energy use. Well, that depends on so many things, Stuart. I mean, how much lighting are we talking about? What was the building energy use to begin with? Do we have any on-site renewables? That is not an easy, simple question to answer, because it's the famous answer of it depends. And that's why you want to make sure to have those discussions with your energy consultant, so that if you have certain goals in terms of building energy use, they are being supported not only with what's within the building, but what's being served by the meter, so that you can get that understanding. You'll see that there are some exceptions associated with controls depending upon the scope of the project. I'm really not going to go through that with you guys. So question for you, if you wouldn't mind putting the answer in the chat. If replacing the poles for this athletic field, did you trigger the energy code? So it's 20 years from now and I'm replacing these 2 poles out in my tennis courts. Did I trigger the code? Did I trigger the code, really? How many number of fixtures is a code trigger? Right, it's 5 or more, and this is less than 5, it's only 2, so I didn't trigger the energy code. Walk away, man, walk away fast. You'd be surprised to know we have a fact sheet about this. This is one of them. I am actually very proud of this particular fact sheet because the graphics in this particular fact sheet, our graphic designer blew it out of the park. And I hope you'll look at it just because it's so pretty. We also have one that supports the acceptance testing. If you want to dive deeper in there, you can, or let your contractors know. Now let's talk about what's different about multifamily. So one, the forms. We talked about how non-residential hotel motel is an NR, non-residential certificate of compliance. Brand new to this code cycle, we have new LM forms that are low-rise multifamily forms, and that is a multifamily building that is 3 habitable stories or less. The high-rise multifamily buildings, per the definition of the energy code, 4 stories or more, will be served by the NR form, just like all of our non-residential buildings. So that's the big change that's happened for multifamily in terms of forms. There also were other huge changes for outdoor lighting for multifamily. So if I have a mixed use multifamily building, let's say it's retail on the first floor and the rest of the building's multifamily, it must meet the multifamily outdoor lighting requirements, of which I'm not sure if you see it, but I only have 2 line items here of how I calculate my wattage allowance. I have the area wattage allowance, and I have that initial that I only get to use the very first time I'm doing lighting, or if I'm including every single fixture that exists on that property. The linear allowance doesn't exist for multifamily. But what they did is increased your wattage allowance by quite a bit. So there's an example down here of how we are no longer using the linear allowance, but when we use the updated or the increased wattage allowance of my lighting zone 3, I actually end up with more wattage allowance for my multifamily building than I would if it was non-residential or hotel motel. Now, this was a very simplistic case. I find a lot of times when I have a multifamily building that has a lot of courtyards, it has an occupied roof up on the area where people are hanging out. When I have a lot of little teeny areas scattered throughout the property, then I start having issues. That's where the linear allowance really does me good, because I'm saying, hey, I have all these unique special areas of the property. I don't have that for multifamily, and that's where you can start having issues with your wattage allowances for multifamily. Now, how about those fixtures that are controlled from within the apartment unit itself or within a hotel motel room in a hotel motel building? If that fixture is controlled with a manual on-off that's in the unit or hotel motel room itself, it meets all the same requirements as single family. This is exactly what single family looks like. We don't care about the wattage. We do care about the controls. If it is not controlled from within the dwelling unit or the hotel motel lighting, hotel motel room, then it is treated just like non-residential lighting and has all the same wattage and control requirements as non-residential. I think I've answered all the questions that went into Q&A. If you have any questions that you put in chat and you didn't get an answer, put it into Q&A now, and then we can make sure to answer it before we finish up. We have more classes on this. We have a half-day class. I love this class. We actually design lighting for a single family home, various rooms, and we get a feel of what it looks like. We have a class just for outdoor lighting. And for Francisco, who had indoor lighting questions, we have classes just for indoor lighting also. And we do have special classes for our enforcement agencies. I had talked about the Q&A tool. This is where there's a lot of questions that have been answered already. I would always suggest going here if you have questions. And if you don't find your question, you don't find the answer to your question, you can submit your question to the help desk. There are so many places you can submit questions to our help desk. We went live with this the end of last year, and you're getting subject matter experts like myself. I answer all of the non-residential questions that come in through the help desk. We do answer them within 24 hours unless it's a weekend or a holiday. We are really quick in answering those questions, and you can always reach out to me directly. We're here to answer your questions. Why does backlight rating matter when a light is oriented to face the boundary? So when you actually look at, this is why I would suggest looking at our non-residential lighting fact sheet. It talks about what we're looking at when we're looking at backlight, uplight, and glare, and where that boundary is. So backlight, we look at it differently than we're looking at uplight, and we look at it differently than we're looking at glare. And where the property line is incredibly important to where, how the fixture is throwing the light. That is very important. How are you going to get a copy of the slide deck is we're going to get a list of everyone who's still with us from Rebecca, and we're going to send you an email tomorrow or Monday that's going to give you links to all of this beautiful stuff I was talking about, plus a PDF copy of my slides. Are there any questions I have not answered, Rebecca?
I believe that there was one in the chat that I think that I will go ahead and read because it's not been put yet in the Q&A.
Oh, here's one. What's this website you're referring to? You must have joined us late. That's the Energy Code ACE website. So join us at www.energycodeace.com. That's where all this loveliness lives. And also that email we're going to send you in the next couple of days will have direct links to all these fact sheets that I referenced to.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, you know what? They just posted it over in the
And we
Q&A.
have 4 minutes, so we will deal with the indoor lighting question because we have 4 minutes. You know, first of all, I want to do spoiler alert. There are very few changes happening for the 2025 code cycle for outdoor lighting. They rearranged this stuff. They made it a little bit cleaner. And like I said already, they're aligning with the Cal Green exceptions for the shielding or bug requirements of the code. Otherwise, no changes. That's pretty big. No changes to the wattage allowances. That's pretty big. What about indoor dimmable lighting for daylighting solutions? That's an awfully broad question. You're going to have to dial in deeper for me to be able to answer that, or let's communicate offline. Chuck is asking, my project is in construction under the 2016 code. Will it be dinged with the new code? And who is enforcing agency for DSA? DSA is their own enforcing agency. And if you're under the 2016 code, you only need to meet the 2016 code requirements. So you're going to have those higher wattage allowances. And I can't quite remember if 2016 had the motion sensors or not. I think 2016 they introduced the motion sensors, but you're going to meet the energy code requirements of the 2016 code, not the current code. And DSA, they're great there. I work with them a lot. They're a great group of guys who really want to help you understand, and they will be able to answer any questions you have. Okay, I think that's it. And I want to thank you very much. I'm shocked I ended a little early. I thought I was going to go over. I know I was talking quickly, but I hope with all the repeating I did, it made sense. And you're like, oh, I got outdoor lighting, Gina. It's no problem. Okay, Rebecca, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, you know what? Somebody just posted one more question. Outdoor lighting on roof to simulate indoor daylighting at, let's see, fixture. Oh, I think it's more of an answer.
That will have to meet the outdoor lighting requirements. I don't care that you're using it to help support your indoor lighting, but it is an outdoor lighting fixture, and that could be challenging.
All right. Well, Gina, as ever, thank you so much for this informative presentation. We appreciate you and Energy Code ACE. I did drop the resources link in there for folks to take back with them before we send over the follow-up email with all the resources. Again, if you have made it this far, your CE will be on its way and in the next 14 days probably, and we will see Gina very soon.
Yeah, I'll be at the Monterey Design Conference. Hopefully, if I see you there, come up and shake my hand and say, hey, I've heard your voice before, Gina. I love seeing the people, the names I see in these sessions.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to see you there, and I hope that everyone enjoys their day.
Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.